British Prime Minister Boris Johnson on Friday chaired a virtual meeting of a group of 7 leaders. It was the first meeting of the group since April last year, and US President Joe Biden's first multilateral call since taking office. As expected, the group pledged efforts to ensure fairer coronavirus vaccine distribution across the globe and to build back better from the pandemic. However, the experts we talked to here said the Club of the Rich Countries is not doing enough. The G7 itself may also be a bit dated, with apparent lack of developing countries on board. A broader sense of global unity, unrestrained by a Cold War mentality, is imperative to tackle such global challenges as the coronavirus pandemic, economic recovery, and climate change.
I think the big point about the G7 is that it is beginning to look a little bit dated. It represents the big economic powers of the 1970s and 80s, and there's been huge structural change since then. So arguably, the body that's important now, and certainly since 2008 and the great economic crisis of 2008, is another of these G bodies, the G20. And G20 is important because it does include the major 20 economies and, of course, China and India. And that's very significant. So if I was thinking in terms of steering the global economy after the pandemic, and indeed talking about climate change, you can't avoid having China in the room.
And I think if we are going to handle these global threats to humanity, which are not about casting one another as the bad guys in order to maintain a positive sense of self, but which are really about trying to imagine humanity as a unit rather than kind of national clubs. We need to really take all possible evidence into account, have really frank and open discussions, and all parties doing that will enable cooperation in both of these areas, I think. What I'm hoping we will see is some sensible debate from all sides, less of the scapegoating. G7 doesn't need China as a scapegoat in order to form this sense of self.